Hi, this is Judah Bernard with the Rise Creating Voice. We are here with Sunday Jewels on the Rise, and we are here to just look at our conversation for today. That conversation for today is setting boundaries, knowing your values and your worth. I am here in an undisclosed area in Tennessee, and I just came to stop because I was having fun and things like that. So look, we were out here doing go-kart riding. We're doing a lot of things, and just wanting you guys to see the mountains in the background and everything, and making sure you guys know, hey, how you doing, Jewels Mentoring? We just want everybody to know that we're talking about setting boundaries, and also in setting boundaries, know your values and your. I have a little music going on in the background. Hi, how you doing, Jules?
Hey, how you doing?
Miss Rhonda, just doing the introduction today. I'm Judah Bernard with the Rise Creating Your Voice. I'm the wisdom dialoguer and the motivational warrior of the Rise Creating Your Voice, the dialogue coach too as well. And we are talking about setting boundaries and knowing your values and your worth. Setting boundaries, setting boundaries. I want Miss Rhonda, my co-host, to go ahead and introduce herself.
Hey, I'm LaRonda, and I am the owner and CEO of Jewels Mentoring LLC. Jules is a self-development agency where I help people learn how to change perspective of life issues and learn how to live life filled with purpose. I also am the host of Dinner and Dialogue, where it's a podcast and we talk about the conversation worth having. And I also have written my own self-development journal, and I am the co-host to Sunday Jewels on the Rise.
That is great. So setting boundaries, what do that mean to each and every one of us? What does that mean? And I looked up boundaries, and it's like drawing a line and drawing the things that you need to do to deal with what you have to deal with. The necessary things I see in setting boundaries is it's okay to say no.
Oh yeah.
It's okay to say no, and it's okay to say I don't know. I don't know my answer right now, but come back to me when I have a little bit more clear picture.
Right.
Because people will manipulate you into something that you probably don't want to do. People will try to persuade you into something you want to do, but understand that you have choices in life. You have
Right.
choices in life. Choices in life. What are some of the definitions you think that boundaries include?
For me, it's the definition which you said, but it's also um being able to not allow yourself to engage in things that you know that you're not able to do. Because I know sometimes people have issues with saying no.
Mm-hmm.
And no to me is a huge boundary that so many people need to learn and become accustomed to, because sometimes we can give so much of ourselves to people, not because we really have the capacity to do it, but just because we feel obligated to do it. So boundaries kind of takes away the obligation of things that you know that you're not able to do.
And the thing is, if you know you're not able to do it or you feel uncomfortable in trying to do
Yes.
it, you don't have to do it.
Right.
Learn how to say no. Learn how to set those boundaries. Know how to create limits. And it's
Right.
okay to say, well, I agree with the first part, but I probably can't do the second part if it has parts to it. So we need to learn what that means. And actually, your values and your worth bring that to it. You are not
Oh,
obligated to agree with anyone. You're
right.
not obligated to agree with anyone. Understand what I mean by that? You don't have to agree with anyone. You don't have to go by what they say.
That's true.
But I understand when it comes to parenting child, because I know a lot of children watch the show. Yes, you have to agree with them sometimes. That's your parent. That's your support. So I understand that too as well. So I don't want people to get it twisted. But then again, when you're in relationships and things like that, have that boundary guideline too as well.
Right.
What are your thoughts about that?
I do agree that your values for self would greatly determine the boundaries that you set in relationships with people, and your parents, and
Yes.
when you're older, because there are parents that are controlling, and there are sometimes when you get to be an adult, you have to make decisions that go against what your parents say or do, and then your values will determine how you handle those situations. I
Right.
truly believe that when you know your value and you know your worth, there's just certain things that you will not engage in, and you will not allow people to do to you that you may not do when you don't know who you are or you don't know your worth. So I do agree that your value and your worth determines the boundaries that you set for yourself in relationships.
Yes, and I think I just had to get out of the car because I was getting hot. But I want
I
people to.
cannot believe you still doing this on
Yes,
vacation.
yes. This is where we're at, all the way in
I
Tennessee,
know
and I want you
exactly
guys to
where
see.
this said.
Yeah, we came down in an undisclosed location, and this is what I'm getting right now. I said I was still going to do the live because this is still important. So I said, hey, I'll stop for a minute, do this live, and get forward. So the thing is, even in my fun time, I'm letting you guys know, those that support, I still know you want to hear it and listen to it. So in it, that's important to me too as well. So I'm
Wow.
setting boundaries saying that I know I owe you something and I know the allotted time that I have. But some people will not negotiate and continue on and say, well, I'm not going to do it. That's just not me because I owe you guys something too as well as you continue to support us doing this too as well. So the most important thing is how many of us are ready for daylight? Well, daylight saving time is here, and we must understand in daylight saving time that this is something that it's still light out here, and it's 6 o'clock, and I have
Whew.
beautiful, beautiful skies and mountains behind me as I'm standing on the highway. So I think we need to understand what are we. Can you hear me?
Huh?
Okay, we need to understand what we are here for as knowing our values, knowing our worth, especially just being available for yourself. That's one thing that I definitely always tell my family. Number one is start with self. You have to set boundaries with self. You have to have self boundaries.
Yep.
And let me tell you a self boundary. Sometimes we get into a funk and some other things, and we decide that we want to do creative things like drinking, knowing you didn't mean to drink that whole bottle of wine, and you
I
want to
didn't.
really just drink one glass. So how do you set that boundary where you just drink that one glass?
Make a decision for yourself.
But then again, it looks so tempting. So my question is, how do you set that boundary where you don't drink that whole bottle?
You're gonna have to make a commitment and a decision for yourself,
Yes,
and let yourself know your limits of what you can't have.
setting
If you know you
limits.
don't want to, if you don't want to be drunk and not
Well,
able to function the next day properly, then you know that you can't drink a whole bottle of wine.
right.
So, so it's all about you knowing what you can handle and being able to limit yourself from things that you know that's not going to work out to the best of your interests. Think about the circumstances that comes after the decisions that you make. If you can't handle those circumstances that comes after your decision and consequences after your decision that you make, then you may want to rethink those decisions.
And the thing is, in understanding what does that decision has to be, it still have to be something that you're comfortable with. Some of us
Right.
always set boundaries, but we break that boundary. So I try to say, how do you measure your boundary? Start measuring your boundary. Start journaling when you set boundaries, and if you set boundaries and then you broke them, write it down so you can see how much you have. I want to say let yourself down, but how sometimes you've broken your boundary. And some people don't acknowledge that sometimes, because they don't want to seem like they're a failure. But the more or the less that you're sitting there looking and writing it down, the more you will understand and know. That's the problem that I have, that some people just don't want to do it.
True. They don't want to
Some
do it and
people
they
just don't
make
want to do it.
excuses.
Some people just don't want to do it. And that's the fact is, if you don't do it, how you know you broke your boundary?
Well, some people don't want to do it and they make excuses for not doing it. And excuses are not, I mean, I know that sometimes there's going to be excuses why you can't do things, but sometimes when you not doing them, just making it unnecessary excuses because of things that shouldn't be, then you're going to have to let the excuses go as well.
So what, and if we base our decision off of our boundaries, are we making a sound decision of something that we definitely assess? And that's why I said we should start journaling and actually putting things down as far as when we break our boundaries. Because we have to understand the importance of journaling and making sure that we set those boundaries, and when we break those boundaries, that we document it so we'll know on things that we have to work on. What are your thoughts about that?
Um, I agree. But I also, I mean, let me ask you this, Judah. What about the people who say, I don't journal, I don't believe in no journaling, and journaling is not for me? What's another way to keep up with those things when people just adamant, like, I don't journal? Journal's not for me.
And the
So,
one,
how do you?
and I have to be honest with you, I don't like journaling, but I do have whiteboards, so I'm quick to look at my whiteboard quicker than I would look at a journal.
Okay.
Sometimes I do sticky notes and I color code. So if I did something wrong, I put the color sticker of that wrongdoing at a situation where I would see it, like on my mirror or something like that, or just be creative. This is your opportunity to be creative.
So, do you feel like there's any way that a person can successfully succeed and could keep up with progress of things without writing it down?
Yes, yes. You can do it however you want to do it. I'm giving examples. Say, for instance, you don't have to write it down. Say, for instance, you set a boundary. You know they have those sticky notes. You can get yellow sticky notes. Every time you broke a boundary, you put that sticky note somewhere where you can see it.
Okay.
Uh, you can do it with money. It's a piggy bank. Every boundary you break, you put it in your piggy bank, whether it's a quarter or a dollar.
Okay.
So there are ways. Um, and the thing is, that week, if you broke no boundaries, you treat yourself to something. That's a reward. Celebrate the small wins.
That's good. I like that.
Hey, how you doing, Zari Blade? I think we need to understand from the door that we have so many things that we can do to make sure that we achieve at our best. But some of us, and I have to agree with myself, I was too lazy before I started looking at healing myself. When I started looking at being the better me, I said I need to put some actions into place to make sure that I'm emphasizing the need of my healing.
Hmm.
The thing is, people are not ready to do the work.
And that is true. I do believe
They
that.
want somebody to fix them for them. Sometimes we got to start fixing ourselves.
That's the only way you're going to be able to manage anything else in relationships, whether it's a romantic one or one with your family. You're going to first have to deal with self because there's no other way around it except through dealing with yourself. Um, Not saying that it's always going to be you that's in the wrong, but you still have to be able to look at yourself and see if it's you in any way, and how can I be assistant? Because some people you may not be able to set those boundaries because they just not gonna listen. So when they don't listen, I believe you just have to walk away from them some kind of way. I don't think you should remain in a situation where people won't allow you to set boundaries. Like you can tell them the boundaries, but if people got their own mind, they're not going to follow them.
Right. But I think, but I think the biggest thing people need to understand is if you measure it, what's your goal in it? What are you looking to get out of everything that you do? What are you looking to get out of everything you do?
For me, grow.
You can't grow if you don't measure it. How do you know if your plant got taller?
I have to write everything down.
You got to measure it. There has to be some type of measuring system in place to know you're achieving at your best. And what does that mean?
I'm not sure.
Has to be a,
Everybody does it different.
there has to be a measurement tool somewhere. So that's like data assessing, where you're looking at, number one, where you were before and what are you trying to achieve. How you doing, Phaeton 144? What are you trying to achieve in life?
Me, purpose, goals.
Yeah. But are people really identifying their purpose? Are they setting their boundaries with their purpose? Or are people being overworked and underpaid?
Most definitely, mostly
I'm
overworked, underpaid.
real. Know your value in the work, and that comes into play about work too as well.
Yeah,
Know your value in your work.
I agree. That is true. Value, I do believe value is so important. Um, I really believe that when you know value, there's just certain levels of things that you just won't allow in the workplace, in the home, in relationships, and family. Knowing your value to me is so important. And for me, for a long time, I didn't know my value. So I allowed things to just go lacking for myself in order to be what other people needed me to be. And it was kind of like, I'm people pleasing and I'm trying to make sure that everything's okay for other people, but I wasn't making anything okay for me.
Right.
I can be uncomfortable, I can be in pain, I could be hurting or whatever the situation is, and no one understood my pain, but it's like I was the one that was always understanding and doing for other people. And that's because I lacked knowing what my value were. And I would get upset when, I would be overlooked, and different things like that. But now that I'm learning my value, I'm able to speak what it is that I need, what it is that I want, what it is that I won't tolerate, what it is that I need in my relationships from people. And if they're not willing to do those things, I know now that I have the power to walk away, because I'm not going to be in anything that doesn't reciprocate, what I need. Growth is important to me. I love learning. And so even if I have friends that I know my goal is to grow. I always want to grow. I always want to learn. So even when I engage with friends, girls, hanging out and different stuff, I don't want to hang with girls that ain't looking to grow. That's to me, that's overstepping. That's neglecting my boundaries, because why would I want to hang with someone that can't grow? Right. And so I'm even learning that much. If you hanging with people and you see that they're okay with being stuck, are they okay with being comfortable? Why would you neglect your boundary when you know that you want to grow? So I'm really beginning to see that value changes so much in your life, because it helps you to really see things for what it is and not for you what you think it is or what you want it to be or the potential you see in somebody. Your value just open your eyes to so many different levels.
So I think one thing is, people can come and probably ask you, and I want you to give an honest answer. Well, Rhonda, I'm having a problem setting my boundaries. And I'm using this as an example. And I know I've been eating. I'm very hungry, you guys. So I've been eating fig Newtons and drinking water. I'm hungry. It's hot out here. So please do not do not bash me for eating and stuff. I'm a whole human being. I need to eat too. How do someone set their boundaries in your... How you doing, Houston? How are you?
First, I'm going to ask them, what is it that you want?
Okay.
Because it's going to start with you knowing what you want. But if you don't know what you want, then how are you going to set the boundaries?
Right. Well, I want to set the boundaries in my relationship.
Okay, what do you want your relationship to be like?
And see, that's the thing that I have with people. They do so much stuff, but they haven't set.
And then, at first I want to know, what is a relationship to you? How do you define your relationship? And another question you got to be is, are you actually in a relationship? Because sometimes people can think they're in a relationship and they ain't in one. Mm-hmm. So all those things to me have to be answered before I can even give an answer to that.
So how can we, number one, figure it out, people in general? How can you teach them how to assess their boundaries? Like the number one thing to move forward in setting a boundary. Like we just described. Number one is you gotta know what boundary you... And you have to have the desire to set it. This ain't no I want to set boundaries, but when the road get rough and those boundaries become unbearable, you want to step out and say, "Oh, I'm gonna give them okay."
Right.
Set those boundaries and stick to them, especially if they work for you.
Right.
The number one thing is know what you want. Because first you got to start off with your values and your worth. And most people don't know their values and their worth. That's something you probably start off with. Start writing your values and your worth down.
True.
And if a significant other or a friend that you're comparing those values or worth to, how do they value your worth and your value? How are they eliciting that or pouring into your values and worth too as well?
That's true.
A lot of my friends, because I'm an older guy, they want at my values and worth. They want to party all the time. That's not me. I want to have meaningful political, spiritual conversations with people to engage the mind and take it on another mindset. But most people don't want to do that.
No, because they're comfortable.
And what's that comfortability level? Conforming to the world?
Conforming to what's normal to them.
Okay. That's doable.
Because everybody's normal is different. It depends on the environment.
I totally agree with that. I totally agree. So what is a norm for them? And I hate to use the word norm because some people think that I'm supposed to be doing what other people are doing.
Right.
That's not a norm. Your norm sets precedence in what you do, particularly just you.
Right.
Now, there are societal norms too as well. So understand societal norms from your individual norm.
And people, I think that's one of the greatest lessons I've learned is that just because my environment taught me one thing and it's my normal, everybody wasn't raised in the same, environment.
Right.
Everybody wasn't raised in the same household. So every household have different rules. Just because your parents did XYZ doesn't mean that my parents did XYZ. And with being raised in a home with single parents, everybody does things differently. And so you can't base things on one answer. You have to base things on what they are for the most part. And when people come to you and they talking to you about things, you can't be quick to judge what their answers are, because to them that is their truth in that moment until they learn something different. Until they get a different perspective how things are, then this is what they believe, and it's their truth, and no one can change their truth for them. It has to be a learning process, and they have to grow to know different things. And you can't expect them to do it the way you want them to do it. You have to allow them to do it how they do it, and how they're led to do it by their higher power, however that is. But it ain't for you to change them. It's for them to get the information and allow the change to take place organically.
And
Nothing
understand
can be forced.
that change starts with you.
Yes.
Starts with you. So I know this is hard for people, but we have to start setting boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Or set boundaries or go crazy. Which one you want to do?
I think I'm going to set my boundaries, because I'm not going to lose my peace for anybody anymore. And I think that once people find that peace, they're not going to let anything or anyone disrupt the peace that they have found within themselves, and they are not battling mentally consistently. So once they find that, it's going to be hard for someone to interrupt that. And the boundaries is going to be set because they refuse to go back to a world of turmoil.
So I think as homework today, as we continue to close us, we have to understand is you got to know your value. You got to know your
Mm-hmm.
worth. Start writing those down, and you can do it as a group exercise as far as your friends. See how your values and your worth are complement each other.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some people are just out there to do what they do.
Yeah.
And that's one, just do what you continue to do what you do. But someday you should start setting boundaries to be better. And what does that mean? That means what's comfortable for you. Better might not be comfortable for you. Good might be comfortable for you. Cool might be comfortable for you. Just doing the bare minimum might be comfortable for you. Know your comfort level. And
Right.
as we continue on, I just want to say that this has been a great, great podcast. Like I said, I'm in an undisclosed location in Tennessee. And I want to really come on, just give this information to you guys because you need to know the importance of setting boundaries. But you did also need to know the importance of knowing yourself and knowing your worth, your value, and your worth.
Right.
What does that look like for you in each individual situation? What does that look like for you? And everything that you do, what does it look like for you? What does it look?
Right.
And that's the hardest part. We don't know what it looked like you in particular because guess what? You have to assess that for yourself. You have to do a self-assessment of your value and your worth and begin to set boundaries to limit those people who keep bringing negative things in your life. And it's going to have to keep doing that. That's the only way you can do it, is set boundaries. Anything you want to say before we leave here today?
No, I just want to let you know that knowing your value is very important. And I promise you, once you know your value, it is going to help you make so many better decisions for yourself. Because then once you know your value, you want to allow people to dictate what you do and how you think. And so and you will be able to follow the path that's for you and not for someone else.
Okay. And that's ditto for me is until you start creating yourself, and what I mean by creating yourself, sit down and think about who you really are.
Mm-hmm.
Erasing all that negative behavior and things that people told you that you could not be. Start doing those things.
Mm-hmm.
Be able to know your value and your worth from a whole standpoint of number one is that you are valuable in this earth. Hello, hola, Julie Brunetto. Yes, I greet you. You greet me. Yes, how you doing? So I think we just have to really understand what it's about. What this whole thing is about is setting those boundaries where you are putting the negative out of your life and building on positive things each and every day. As we leave,
Right.
We want you to know that Sunday Jewels on the Rise come on every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. And also tell them about your dinner podcast.
Yes, I do Dinner and Dialogue podcast. We haven't had a new episode lately, but I'm doing a workshop on Saturday, March the 26th from 12 to 3, and it will be virtual, and that's going to be part of our podcast. And if you would like to join that, you can register at www.jewelsmentoring.com.
Okay. So you hear that? Make sure you register at www.jewelsmentoring.com.
Mm-hmm.
LLC?
Yep.
mentoringllc.com. We want to leave you guys with this point of information is start setting boundaries. Know your worth, know your values. Hello, everyone that's joining. Tobias, Lena, 2020. Thank you guys for joining. We're about to end this thing. We come on every Tuesday, Podbean at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. We're looking forward to seeing you guys on each occasion. And understand that we are here. We are here for you at all times. If you like us, DM us, like, subscribe, tell your friends about us because we'll be on next Sunday, okay?
Okay.
Tell a friend, tell a foe, tell your spouse, heck, tell everyone. We'll see you on the next podcast. Good
Bye.
night.
Good night.